Today we're going to be talking about some things that I'm not going to be selling on eBay anymore. Then we'll get into the sales information. We'll look at total sales from last week, as well as the 5 worst sales, and then the 5 best sales from last week, and all the details. Let's get into it. So today I want to talk about 5 different things that I'm not going to be selling on eBay anymore. And this all came about because I was looking at my inventory, I'm looking at sales, and trying to make sure for future buying decisions I'm weeding out these type of items because they take up time, space, capital. Even though some of it's not a lot of capital, it does take it up, and then that's just money that I can't spend on other things to, turn a good profit on. So, and there are some caveats, we'll go through that, but I would encourage you, if you're a reseller, to be going through your sales and your inventory and seeing what's making profit for you and what's not, and don't, hold back on making it's really an easy decision, but sometimes it feels like a hard decision to say, I'm going to stop buying these types of items in the future, because I believe firmly that for my business, it's helping, and it could help your business as well if you make those types of decisions and you kind of, steer your money in different directions. They can be directions just as much fun in categories that you like, but just invest your money wisely. So we'll talk about those 5 items right now. So, and some of these are fresh because I have just sold some of them, and it's just triggered for me. It's like, man, I got to stop buying this stuff. And some of it I haven't bought in quite a while, but as I'm selling through it, I'm just reminding myself not to buy it again. And the first one is going to be these vintage poker chip sets. I've sold both of these recently, and I say both of these, they're going to be over here, I think. Both of these poker chip sets. So I picked them up, each one of them, I picked them up at estate sales for $1 a piece for both of them. Just thinking, man, these are so cool. They're vintage. They have the marbled, plastic. It looks really cool. And these are going to sell. And I just, in my head, I thought that. And I've started, I've learned now that there's lots of vintage stuff that looks really cool that's not worth a lot on the resale market. So even in buying it for $1, it's not. So you'll see the example here where I sold one for 10, and I think I sold one for about 17 bucks, but still, for the amount of time I had to hold these items, many months, it just doesn't make sense to invest my money there. And interestingly enough, I bought them about a month apart or so, and I had them for a handful of months, and then they sold within, I think, like 3 days of each other. I have no idea why, but that happened. So I was glad to get them out of my inventory. There's other items like this. There's some games, some vintage games you may see. They're like, oh man, those look really cool. And they're just not worth a lot on the resale market, even if they're in great shape. They're just not. So that's something I'll be staying away from in the future. I know that's kind of niched down, but I see them all the time now. I stopped buying them after I bought that second one, and I noticed they weren't moving. I've seen a lot more. I've not been buying them. So that's item number 1. Item number 2 are individual sockets for socket sets. I won't be listing those. Now there's a caveat. The ones that I've sold so far, I've sold some Proto, SK Tools. I think I've sold a couple Craftsman ones. I've even sold a couple unbranded ones. But the thing is, when you get into those single sockets of the mid-tier to low-tier brands, you're going to sell them for anywhere between, like, say, $3 to $6, $7, somewhere in there. And the return, even if you get it for free or 50 cents or $1 on a $5 item, whenever it's sitting around, because it takes a while, they don't just fly off the shelf, those lower end ones. For the time, space, pictures, all the stuff, doesn't make sense to invest time and energy selling those items. Now, the caveat is, if you find a selection of random snap-on sockets or Blue Point sockets or Cornwell sockets, there's some brands out there, maybe Matco, there's some brands out there that will fetch pretty good money, especially if you get the bigger sockets. You get like some 1.5 inch, 1.25 inch, 1 3/4, or 2 inch, these big sockets. I'll put some comps up on the screen so you can see what the bigger sockets can fetch. Selling those one at a time may make sense if you have the right buy cost. So there's some caveats in a little bit of this, but the ones that I've been selling, like this past week I sold a spark plug socket for $6.50. I pulled it out of a random toolbox that had a bunch of sockets in it, but after I took pictures and I held it and then I packed it and all the stuff, doesn't make sense to sell those things. So I'm going to be staying away from those going forward. The third one kind of surprised me as I got back into reselling clothing, and this one's a little bit brand specific, and I'm putting this one out there because I see it fairly often, so I imagine other sellers do as well. Maybe, depends on your, I guess, regionality maybe. But 511 tactical clothing. So you can go buy 511 tactical retail, and it's pretty expensive if you buy it brand new, full retail. Now they have clearance sales a couple times a year that are pretty, in fact they have one coming up I think for Memorial Day, but they have some very, very steep discounts for Memorial Day, and you can get some stuff at really, really good prices. So there's that option. But on eBay, unless you're selling something new with tags, I was interacting with Busy Bee in the comments, who bought a bunch of new with tags shirts at a thrift store for a few bucks. So that's a phenomenal deal to do that. You can get better money if you're selling new with tags. But I predominantly see used clothing. So I see a lot of the tactical pants that like first responders wear, have all the multi-pockets all over the place for different tools and stuff. I sold a shirt this past weekend, and so I've sold a handful of pieces, and the used clothing, the resale value is just not great. If you can pick it up for, say, $1 a piece at a garage sale, probably not horrible. Buying it from a thrift store doesn't make sense. And I've only come across it at thrift stores. I've never come across it at garage sales or estate sales before. Now that's clothing. They have a whole line of bags, backpacks, accessory packs, sling bags, all these different things. I did pick one of those up at Goodwill for like $4. Sold it for $35, I think. So $35. That one was pretty good. So some of their bags, which don't really go on clearance or sale, can be worth picking up if you find them at the right buy cost. So just something to look out for is maybe look, you can find their bags sometimes, but used clothing, just pay attention to what you're buying, the series of clothing, make sure you're comping it against the right items to make sure the resale value is there. But by and large, I'm not going to be buying it anymore. And then number four is Vera Bradley. This is an interesting one. It's very popular on eBay. It is super, super, super saturated. There's so much Vera Bradley on there. And I think this could make sense if I was doing live selling, possibly. If I buy something for a few bucks and I'm live selling because I'm flipping very, very fast, maybe my fees are a little bit less, and I'm turning my money within, a few hours versus days, weeks, months. I bought some little Vera Bradley pieces at a garage sale last fall for $2 a piece, thinking, I'll sell these for $15-20, and I'm selling them for like $10 or $12, and I still have some of it, and I only bought 5 or 6 pieces. So if you're buying Vera Bradley, I would pay very close attention to the pattern. I'd Google Lens the pattern to see if maybe you have a retired pattern that's worth a lot. But I've looked at their backpacks or duffel bags, just all sorts of stuff, and I've not been able to find a way to flip those for good money. From the thrift stores, actually the best prices I've seen are at the thrift stores. When I go to garage sales or an estate sale and I see Vera Bradley, it's usually a little bit better taken care of, and they have it priced fairly high because they know what they paid for it brand new, and they're thinking, man, I paid $120 for this bag brand new, so I'll sell it for $50 at the garage sale or $40. And for a consumer, that's probably a really good deal, but for me to resell it, I can't do it. So by and large, the vast majority of Vera Bradley, I'm going to skip it. I'm not going to buy it. And then number 5, This one's kind of fun. Souvenir mugs. And I still have, I don't know. I'm down quite a bit. I might have 15 souvenir mugs now. I think I started out with about 30 or so of them, something like that. 28 of them. But at an estate sale last year, I bought, what was it, $8? So I bought 32, I think. Bought $8 worth. No, 25? I don't know. They were 5 for $1. They're 20 cents a piece, 5 for $1. I just bought a ton of them. I didn't comp anything. I was like, these are super cool for 20 bucks or 20 cents a piece. I can't go wrong. I did not know how wrong I was about that. Most of them that I've sold for 7 to 10 bucks. And 20 cents into 10 bucks isn't horrible, but by the time you get done, because a lot of them are made in Japan, they're kind of they're ceramic or porcelain. They're very thin, a lot of them. So I pack them very, very well. So the amount of time I'm spending packing them, putting them in a nice box to make sure it gets there safely, it's a lot of work to make probably about $4, net on something. And it is something that I won't be doing again. Once I sell through these, and I don't know, I may just do a giant lot of what I have left to get rid of them, because they are just trickling out of here. They have been since last fall. So, yeah, and I'll pop up all the ones that I've sold here. You can see those. There's some really cool stuff, but just not something I'm going to be doing anymore. And those are the 5 items. So let me know down in the comments if you think I'm crazy for not buying those 5 items anymore, or if you have items that you won't be buying anymore that you can let us all in on, stuff to watch out for. If maybe you're in a hurry, you're not comping, or you're somewhere where you don't have service, you can't comp stuff, any stuff we can keep up here mentally in the little mental Rolodex to know not to buy would be helpful. So let us know. All right, let's talk about last week's sales overall. It was a really good week. The weekend was a little bit slowish. And I say slowish. I had 10 sales over the weekend. I remember whenever I would get 7 or 8 sales in a week, and I would just be over the moon. Whenever I was starting to ramp eBay back up, whenever I would just get in my eBay store, back to life, if I got 10 sales in a week, I'd be ecstatic. And here I'm saying 10 in a weekend is slowish, but it was a really good week. We had sold 34 items last week. I was just like blown away. Monday kicked it off with 10 items just on Monday. Just completely blew my mind. It was nuts. But yeah, it's crazy. Interestingly enough, I had a very, very busy weekend outside of eBay and reselling last week. There's finals and AP testing and all this stuff, and my we're getting a bunch of stuff ready for him. He's graduating this week, and it's just like there's a lot of stuff going on. So I wasn't listing a lot. I only listed 19 new items last week and sold 34. So that was pretty amazing. When I think about that, I think about the stuff that sold, the timeliness, what time of year I'm selling this stuff. Some golf clubs, for instance. Sold some cookware, which, as far as I can tell, just sells year round. If you have the right stuff and you have the right price, it just sells year round. So I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just going to say that I feel like the quality of the inventory that I have, that I've been buying more recently, is higher, better than stuff that I may have bought 6 months ago. Which is why, listings can be down a little bit, but sales are still pumped up pretty good. Yeah, so sold 34 items. I listed 19 new items last week. Total sales for last week was $2,057.06, which when I got to the end and was adding that up, I was like, whoa, I thought it was going to be around 15 or 1800, somewhere in there. And when it just went over $2,000, I was just shocked. So that's $1,682 in item sales and $375.06 in shipping revenue. So that gives me a net profit, net pre-tax profit of $976.66. And that's a 47% profit margin. That's the second week in a row that I've beat my profit margin goal which just has me so excited. I mean, just woo, man, 47% profit margin. I like to see that. I actually made $24 on shipping last week, which is pretty norm. It's about normal. So I'm usually making somewhere between $10 and $20 a week on shipping, which means I'm charging, you know, if I made $10 a week, that'd be because I charged $10 in shipping revenue, but it only cost me $10 to ship orders, so I made $10. But last week, I made $24 in shipping as well. The number one profit source for orders last week was Facebook Marketplace. That's the first time that one's happened, and it's because of one really big sale that I had last week that was very profitable for me. There's only 2 items that came from Facebook Marketplace that sold last week, and I usually don't have almost any that came from Facebook Marketplace, so to have 2 in 1 week is a little interesting, but it made up 30% of the profit from last week, those 2 items alone. I had 22 items that sold on promoted listings. That's 65% of the items that sold. I had 14 items, or 41%, sold on offers. Some of those were offers I sent out. Some of those were offers that buyers sent to me and I accepted. And then I had 9 double dips, or 26% of items sold. And a double dip is items that were sold on a promoted listing and an offer, which I have that built into my pricing. Doesn't bother me when both things happen at the same time. So that's how the sales breakdown for the week. Again, just phenomenal week. I couldn't be happier than the way that went. I didn't run any sales over the weekend. Coming off of the week as it had gone, 24 items through Thursday, I was like, you know, I'm not going to run a sale. I mean, I'm sitting up, I'd be okay with the 24 items. I was like, but I'll probably sell some stuff over the weekend. So I'm just going to let it fly and see what happens. And the 10 items came in. Great ending to a great week. Just super happy with how it turned out. Before we get into the worst and the best, let me know how your week went. Are your sales up? Are they down? I had 12 more sales this past week than the week before. So, you know, profit margins up, profits up, just everything is up for me. And again, as we look at the items, you'll see a lot of the drivers why that is. But let us know how your sales are doing. I'm genuinely interested to see, you know, as a whole, how everyone's, you know, what the mix looks like. Let us know. All right, let's talk about the 5 worst sales of last week. I didn't lose any money. I'm very happy about that. I was on a little bit of a streak again, losing money on items each week, but broke the streak. So let's look at the 5th worst sale of the week. It's this little tobacco jar. My wife picked this up. It's a little milk glass with like a blue nautical theme. Picked that up at an estate sale, and we considered keeping it. In fact, whenever we left, I thought we were keeping it. And she goes, no, I thought you'd want to sell it. And I go, oh, okay. So I did put it up for sale. There was a bunch of them on eBay, and there's some different colors of it, like green, green lid with a green mural or graphics on it. But cool little tobacco jar. Picked it up for $1, ended up selling it for $10.11 plus shipping on an offer. So made $6.25 on that for a 33% profit margin. For being one of the worst sales, it's just because the profit's so low. These are the 5 least profitable items. The margin's not horrible. It's not what I prefer, but not horrible. If I'm going to sell low dollar items, I'd rather them be very profitable. You know, really above 50 if you're selling low dollar items. The 4th worst sale of the week is this Hoyle. This is a poker chip set. So it was in the box. The box was originally just the rotating poker chip holder, but they already had it loaded whenever I bought it with poker chips, 2 decks of cards, and unfortunately the value just wasn't that great. And I had it at $9.89 plus shipping on eBay, and somebody paid full price. So I made $5.63 in pre-tax profit, or a 25% profit margin. Then looking at the 3rd worst sale of the week is this. It's a 511 tactical shirt this is one of the things that like threw the alarm bell. Actually, number 4, 3, and 2 are items that were on that 5 items I'm not going to sell list. So that 511 tactical shirt, this was a tactical series. So 511 Tactical is the brand, but then they have tactical series pants and shirts, which are usually a little bit older. But this one is a conceal and carry shirt. It has a place for you to get through your shirt, and if you have a carry on you. So I paid $7.48 for it. I did comp this one. I thought I comped it around 25 bucks. And I did have it listed higher, but I hadn't had any action on it at all for about 2 months. And I probably could have waited longer, but somebody sent me an offer for $17 and I took it just to get it out of the store. So brought back $4.63 in pre-tax profit for a 20% profit margin. Then the second worst sale of the week is this Proto spark plug socket. I got nothing into it. Just got it in a big bunch of a toolbox that had a whole bunch of stuff that I sold and made a pile of money on. But I put this one up for sale by itself. Sold it for $5.86 on an offer for a pre-tax profit of $4.08 or a 39% profit margin. So now somebody can change for spark plugs. And then the worst sale of the week is this Holman Compact. It's a red letter edition, large print Bible I picked up. It is personalized. I bought 2 of them at an estate sale for $2 a piece. I did not comp them at all. I bought them because they were in really good shape. They were red letter, and one was giant print and one was large print. And the bigger print Bibles tend to sell pretty well. What I probably should have done is I should have stayed away from them, because usually the ones that have like the index like running along the sides do really well. These don't do as well, but picked it up for $2, sold it for $7.63 on an offer. A buyer who was a chaplain, actually, that was in his buyer name, sent me an offer for $7.63. Couldn't refuse selling a Bible to a chaplain. Made $2.89 in pre-tax profit or a 22% profit margin. And that's it. Not horrible for the worst sales. You know, there's still some money in there that I can reinvest in the business and buy better inventory, which I'm doing. So I'm happy to have those things work their way out of the store so we can get some new stuff in. And now the 5 best sales of the week is interesting. The fifth and the fourth best sales are $100 sales. And I remember just a couple, maybe like 6-8 weeks ago, having the 5th best sale of the week be like $15. So it's interesting how things shift whenever you're putting higher quality products in your inventory and making those with better sell through and getting those up for sale. They sell. So let's see here. 5th best sale of the week is this Electrolux Guardian canister vacuum, canister only. So glad to sell this one. I've sold it once before. I actually sold it back in November or December, and I didn't have, the person returned it. They opened a return and said, the motor doesn't have any suction. I'm like, that's weird. I think I may have told this story already because I've sold some other vacuum stuff, but, and I was like, and I replied, I sent a message. I said, that's so weird. I tested it and it worked just fine. He goes, well, it's not working. I was like, well, okay, send it back. Problem is whenever he sent it back, I had sold the hose that went with it. I didn't have anything to test it with to see if he was in fact fibbing. And finally, I got another vacuum a few weeks ago that had a hose that fit it. I plugged it in. It worked perfect. And I was just like, I paid $27 bucks to ship that thing back. So that was last year. That expense, that selling expense got, in last year's write-offs, tax write-offs. So, but that was a bummer, knowing that it actually worked just fine, and it's been sitting down here for 5 months before I resold it. But I did resold it in about a week and a half of having it listed. So originally paid $22 for it, sold it for $99.89 plus shipping. Actually sold it for more than I sold it for the first time. I think I look back and I sold it for like $85 the first time. So sold it for more. So did make up some of that shipping that I lost, for a $58.11 pre-tax profit, or a 45% profit margin, right on the profit margin goal. So happy to see that go. Then this next one, the fourth best sale of the week, are these Revireware. It's a vintage Revireware set, and it's not. I didn't buy it as a set. I buy lots in groups whenever I can, but I've been saving up pieces and putting together sets, and did this 8-piece set. I got $20 into it, sold it for $99.89 plus shipping. Same buyer bought another set. The reason I don't have it all wrapped together, he bought them on 2 separate transactions. I guess I could have added them together, but yeah, bought them on 2 separate transactions. So, and he didn't, and they weren't on offers or anything. He just bought one, and then a few minutes later bought the other one. So, but yeah, that was an awesome sale. $20 into it, $99.89 plus shipping, for a pre-tax profit of $63.24, or a 54% profit margin. Killer profit margin on that one. And the reason is the shipping cost. I divided it between the 2 pieces, the two different orders. I shipped them in one box, so I combined the shipping, but it only cost. It costs the same, because of the way I charge this bigger lot. The smaller lot basically shipped in the box for free, so I made something like $17 on shipping, because he didn't ask to combine shipping. He knew what he was paying for the whole deal, and so there we go. Paid $17 in shipping on that one. All right, number 3 is something I did a video on, a short video, and then I showed it on a what sold. So, are these Ricky Fowler edition? These are Cobra Junior golf club set. I paid $50 at a garage sale, which seems a little nuts because the profit wasn't huge, but I was looking at the comps and I'm like, these things are selling at 100+% sell-through rate. We're getting just into summertime. People are golfing. Dads want to take their kids golfing. Yeah, I'm going to buy it. And I sold it within 4 hours of listing it for full price of $134.89 plus shipping, for a $63.26 pre-tax profit, or a 41% profit margin. That one was so cool. I asked the lady that was running the garage sale, I said, would you take $40 for them? And she goes, no. She goes, maybe tomorrow. She goes, but I've had so many people looking at them that I just think I'm going to get $50 for them. And I said, okay. And I'm just walking around inside, just looking, is there anything else I can buy to bundle or do something? And there really wasn't. And so while I'm looking around, I hear, I don't know if it was her mom or sister or somebody, there's another lady there with her, who said, look, there's another guy looking at him right now. And I kind of glanced over my shoulder, and I see somebody else who's like, kind of like thumbing through the clubs. And I was like, I said, all right, here's $50. I'll go ahead and take them. And so, because I had already looked at the comps and knew what the range was and the pricing, and I was like, I'm going to sell them. And I did within 4 hours. It was amazing. I was so happy with that. All right. Number 2, more golf clubs. So number 2 is this set of Grand Hawk XP Tour irons. This one was a shocker for me. I went to a garage sale and I saw a black ping hoofer bag that I really liked. I wanted it for myself or to sell. It's worth selling. It's probably worth $60 or so to sell it. And I'm looking at the other clubs in the bag, and I'm like, Grand Hawk, and I'm like, there's so many different generic brands out there on the market that I was like, I don't know, I'll just donate the clubs, and I just want the bag. So again, I asked the lady, I was like, would you take $10? And she goes, no. She goes, I got to take 15. They're my boyfriend's clubs, and he actually wanted 25, but I didn't think anybody would pay 25 at a garage sale, so I marked him 15. And I knew the bag was worth it, so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go ahead and take them. So I throw them in the back seat, and I don't know, I think I was getting out of the car, and I was like, well, let's see what if those clubs, maybe they're selling on eBay. Maybe I can sell the clubs for $50 or something. And to my surprise, there were sets going for up to like $175, different styles and stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, the clubs are worth more than the bag. So I got to clean the clubs up, got them listed up. So I broke out the costs: $10 for the clubs, $5 for the bag. So I've got $10 into the clubs, sold them for $107.38. That was a counter offer. So I sent somebody an offer, I think for like $115, $120, and they countered back with $107.38. And I was like, I got $10 in the things, and yeah, I'll do that. So I took it pretty fast. And I was on pins and needles a little bit because it took them about 8 hours to pay for them. But they paid, and I got them shipped. So for $76.83 in pre-tax profit, or a 63% profit margin. I think it was the best profit margin of the whole week were those golf clubs right there that I thought were worth nothing, and I was going to have to donate them to Goodwill. So that was a point. I'm glad I was curious about the clubs, and then I paid attention and didn't just dismiss them. So now whenever I go see random sets of clubs, I'm checking them out going, man, is this something I don't know about? And I played golf, growing up from whenever I was in, I don't know, when I was about 13 or 14, I started playing, and yeah, so threw me for a loop, but I'm glad I sold them. And then the number one sale of the week. So I had 2 sets of clubs and 2 sets of cookware in the top 5. The number one sale of the week is a set of permanent stainless steel cookware that I bought off Facebook Marketplace. I was randomly looking on Facebook. My kids were doing homework or something, and I looked on there. I hadn't been on Facebook looking for probably a few days, and because of my history, the For You tab comes up on Facebook Marketplace, and I see this set of permanent stainless steel. I was like, man, that's a nice set. They had it marked at $200. Went back and forth with the guy for 20 minutes or so. We agreed on $150. I did drive a little ways to pick them up, and it was dark. I picked them up at 9:30 at night, and but paid $150. Got them back home. Went to clean them up the next day, get them so I could get them listed, and it looked like, I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but there are some people you just can tell if you look in their garage and you're just like, these are not handy people. These people aren't out, building their own, knocking down their own walls and building their own whatever. These people just hire people to do this stuff. And so I noticed that about his house. I was like, he had one little tool bag in his garage, and that was it. And he carried most of the stuff to the car while we were talking and put it in there. And I went back and looked in the few pictures he had put up. What I didn't notice is that at some point he had probably taken them apart because the handles unscrew. If there's handles on both sides, they'll both come off, because grease gets trapped up underneath there if you're using them a lot. And he probably took them off to clean them, probably lost some of the original hardware, and he had on the craziest hard screws. And there was like a lag bolt. I mean, stuff that did not belong on these pieces of cookware at all, barely holding some of it together. In fact, I picked one saucepan up, and when I picked it up, the saucepan fell right off the handle. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Man, I was so upset that I didn't check them out beforehand. And one of them, I did feel a little wobble whenever I was putting it in the car. And a lot of that old stuff kind of loosens up with time. And some are flathead, some are Phillips. You just have to tighten up the screw, and it's perfect. So I didn't think anything of it, the one that I noticed that did that. But there were a few pieces that did that. I think 4 of them had bad, wrong hardware, nuts and bolts holding the handles on. And I was like, come on, guy. Like, why would you do that? Not say something about, hey, I replaced this hardware. It's not the exact stuff. Why wouldn't you? I mean, this stuff is very, very expensive, brand new. And so $150 is a good deal for a set. But, man, you still got to tell people that stuff. That is just... I still haven't decided if I'm going to go on and leave him a bad review or not, because it was pretty shady the way he did it. Really was. So, luckily, I'm somewhat handy. I took a good screw out of one of the pieces, took it down to his hardware, found something that was very, very, very close, the right length, the right thread, just a different head style, and I replaced the stuff that was wrong to where everything was rock solid, just in great condition. Handles are, on there. I did disclose that I put on replacement hardware in the description and in pictures. So I bought $6 worth of hardware. So I paid $150, threw in an extra $6 for the nuts and bolts and bolts and washers that I bought. And I was telling my son, because he goes, "Where'd you go?" I said, "I went and picked up this set of cookware." He goes, "Oh, did you get a good deal?" I said, "Well, I paid $150. And he goes, "What?" I said, "Well, I think I can sell it between $300 and $400 though." And he goes, "Oh, that's pretty good." And once I started looking around, I was like, I'm gonna list it a little bit high to see what happens. So I listed it for $459.89 and sold it in 48 hours. I woke up. I told my wife this. She made fun of me a little bit. I woke up for some reason at like 2:30 in the morning. Like, I think my neck was hurting or something. I don't know. I woke up and because I'm an American adult, I checked my phone and I see the notification saying that thing sold. And so I couldn't go back to sleep. I was so excited. I could not go back to sleep past 2:30 in the morning. That was a long day. So, oh man. So I paid $156. Sold it for $459.89 for a $236.33 pre-tax profit, or a 49% profit margin. I'm pretty sure that is the best pre-tax profit on a single item. And I know it's a set, but it's one listing that I've ever made before. So that really helped propel the week. $2,000 in sales, got almost 25% of that sales revenue wrapped up right there in that one sale. Just amazing. And that's it. Those are the sales for the whole week. I appreciate you listening to my rambling and stories and long-windedness going through all those different items and the 5 items that I'm not going to sell anymore. So if you have any comments or questions, please leave those down in the description below, and I'll make sure to get back to you. And until next time, have a great day.